Hey everyone, I just got back from our child's elementary school this morning, and I wanted to talk about some issues that are related that really reflect the intersection between mental health and education. I am in my casual clothes, which is usually some sort of a t-shirt that talks about my values. So this one says, "Privilege is when you think something is not a problem because it isn't your problem." And I wore that because, one, I don't really own any red clothes because I'm pretty red and my skin gets really red, so I avoid red clothes. And this is as close to red as I could do, and red for red. But also I thought that the message was very, very appropriate. And I wanted to talk about this because I am feeling all of my feelings, and I want some of our videos to be about our experiences in the world, just like you have. We talk a lot about, or we try to give instructional videos about psychological things, but really we're also living in this world, and I want to talk to you when I am in an emotional state that is not perfect because I'm upset about what's going on around us. So I'm Dana Torpey-Newman. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. My husband and I have this channel, Newman Psych, and we talk about all things psychology. This morning, we were asked as parents to attend a rally outside of the elementary school. The purpose of the rally is that the Board of Education is creating their budget for next year that will then be submitted to the Board of County Commissioners for approval. And unfortunately, the things that are currently being considered because of federal cuts to public education include things like cutting dental insurance for teachers, eliminating substitutes in the building, and this one is, they're all terrible in my opinion. This one is particularly really impacts me because of what I do. Cutting mental health providers, cutting school counselors, not having a sufficient number of school counselors. And this other one is insane that we're having this discussion. Cutting funds to make sure that the HVAC systems work appropriately in the schools. We live in a place where it can get really, really hot. And if the air conditioning doesn't work, there are plenty of times that various public schools, not the one that our kid goes to, but other ones in the area have closed or dismissed their students early in the day because it's just too hot. But we're going to cut funds for this. And when I got home, I felt really hopeless. And I felt hopeless because the Board of Education in the county that we live in is actually mostly very reasonable people who I know support public education. I've been in places, I've lived in places where the board members want to dismantle public education. That is not here. I know that the people who are on the Board of County Commissioners, most of them support public education. They're not the problem either. I've lived in places where they don't support public education. But that's what made me feel so hopeless, because these decisions are actually going to be controlled by the federal cuts. So we already knew that there were federal cuts to public education that made it so that there was a hiring freeze for teachers. We already have too few teachers, but there was a hiring freeze. It took away money, grant money, that was going to fund teachers. That is one of the federal decisions that was made. And then there was this most recent decision that I saw an article about just a day or two ago that took away $14.1 million from our budget in this state that was geared toward mental health. Now, I want to just talk about that for a minute because that is extremely relevant to one, why you should care and why I feel so upset. So in 2023, President Biden provided, I think it was $1 billion, $2 billion of funding under a Gun Violence Prevention Act. And that included this money to have more counselors in the schools. This cut This was called some sort of radical left-wing whatever and was cut. And the consequence of it is that in the state we live in, or maybe even, I wonder if it was in the state or even in the county. I'm not sure. It doesn't matter. It's still an enormous amount of money for any school district or state. But it may have just actually been in the county now that I think about the article that I had read. $14.1 million that is directly impacting the hiring of mental health professionals. And so I want to say a couple of things about this. Number one, when we lived in Colorado, we lived in a place where there was a school shooting. It was the STEM school shooting. And the night of the shooting, there was a vigil that was held at another school in the town. And people like Moms Demand Action, the congressperson at the time, Jason Crow, there was maybe March for Our Lives, whatever the student-run organization against gun violence was at the time. They were all present at this vigil, and they all spoke about the need for gun violence prevention. And the students started chanting mental health and walked out of the vigil. And those ideas didn't come from them. They came from their parents who, like many people, say, guns aren't the problem, mental health is the problem. But if that's true, then why are we defunding mental health services for kids when we're all so afraid of school shootings? These are the things that are just infinitely upsetting to me. When people talked about their why, like why they were at this rally, and just to be clear, there were not enough parents at this rally. There were the teachers and the administrators, the staff at the school, their kids, and I think I could have been the only parent. There may have been a couple of others, but like here we are sending our kids, asking these people to stay with them for hours every afternoon because the buses don't have enough drivers and the teachers are there at the school for an hour to an hour and a half after school is dismissed, just having to be there because the buses aren't there. We're asking them to provide mental health services because they're not accessible anywhere else. And we're asking them to do this with not enough mental health professionals and saying, and you can't have any more, even though we know the mental health needs of kids are so enormous. We've created this situation. We are now living in a time where we are reaping what we have sown. The defunding of public education, the disrespect of teachers, the disrespect and disregard for mental health. The school counselor, who is currently the only school counselor at the school, she was saying that her schedule is so busy that the students realize how busy she is and are trying to make appointments with her. When you're having a mental health crisis and you're an elementary school kid, you can't wait for that. We need our school counselors to be accessible and available and not running around trying to put out every single fire. It is just devastating to me what we have done, and the federal cuts, I feel them. Some people may be like, well, these aren't affecting us, or it's going to be okay. But when I stood there and heard the teachers talk about having their dental insurance cut and talking about not being able to see students for mental health concerns when they have them, I just wanted to cry. I just wanted to scream. I want to scream from the rooftops. These are the values we've chosen, and we can't be surprised at the consequences that ensue. The consequences are going to be this. The mental health, the state of the mental health and mental well-being of our kids is going to continue to deteriorate. There are going to be things like school shootings. We already have plenty. We're clearly moving in the wrong direction to reduce those. We're also going to have a bunch of really, really unhappy, psychologically distressed teenagers and adults. And I don't know why we would want that in our society. Why would we want this? We have this one life to live. Why would we want to do this to humans? I don't understand. When we choose what we spend our money on, when we choose our elected officials, we choose how they are going to prioritize what values. But now, usually in a local situation where you have people who are like-minded and promote the kinds of values that I know are best for humans, like supporting public education and supporting mental health, those are the things that make a good community, a good society, a good electorate in the future. We have that here, and we are still impacted by what's going on federally because these cuts are devastating, and the impact is going to affect all of us. Do not think that you will not be impacted by what is happening. I hope that you will continue to like and subscribe to our content. I want to provide more of these kinds of videos because I think you need to see in real time what the impact is. One of the things I always say about my job, because I primarily specialize in therapy, is that I know a little bit about everything because the people that I interact with, one, even in my personal life, people tell me all their things, mostly because I ask and I'm interested. People are my special interest. But two, because I actually hear about all of these things and I try to go to these things that maybe you don't have access to, that maybe you don't have experience doing. I want you to see the world from other people's perspectives. If you can do that, you really start to recognize what we need to do to make this a better country. So, I don't know what's next. I don't feel very hopeful for our public education system, and I'm not sure what to do. If you have ideas, comment below. But for now, I'm going to try to do my job with the utmost fidelity and integrity because that's all that I have control over. I hope to see you all soon.